Welcome everyone to episode 57 of Raw Sport. My name is Ahmed Al Houli, and here we go again with another great episode. Big guest, and as he does every single week, or every single show, I should say, my co-host, Mr. Tony Sheen, joins me. Tony, what is happening, my friend?
Ahmed, good morning. And look, I know we say this every 48 hours, but our guests keep getting better and better.
Absolutely. Today we have boxing royalty in the house, Mr. Barry Michael. Barry, welcome to the show, mate. How are you? How's things?
Yep, thanks, Ahmed. Thanks, Tony. Yep, pretty good, mates. As you probably know, I commentated the Team Ellis show Wednesday night at the Melbourne Pavilion, and I got home, went to the casino afterwards, got home at 2 a.m. and came home to a flooded house.
Oh,
wow.
Baz, what happened to the house?
Water.
What happened to the house?
And I got the insurance guys coming today.
Oh, wow. Ahmed, it sounds like a job for Houdini Plumbing.
Absolutely.
Backside. And you wouldn't believe it, I had to go and do some work with Brodie Holland at the Ellis gym last weekend, and they said, "Oh, you wouldn't believe it." I said, "Why are we doing this on a Saturday night?" They said, "Oh, the gym's been closed because we had a flood and there was 150 grand's worth of damage." And I said, "What happened?" Our toilet upstairs burst. And what happens 5 days later, it happens to me.
Wow. There you go. All right, before we get into what we have as a massive show ahead, we want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. I'll hand it over to you, Tony.
Well, Ahmed, the timing could not be better with Barry's house turned to shit. So if you want to upgrade to Houdini Plumbing, ditch your old gas hot water unit and switch to an energy efficient heat pump. Barry, you can save on bills, reduce your carbon footprint, and enjoy reliable hot water. So why would you choose Houdini Plumbing, Baz? Instead of going to Queensland, which I think you're going to do soon, these heat pumps are energy efficient with up to 70% less energy. They're also eco-friendly, which is great for the environment, which means lower emissions, and cost savings, which means your bills will be slashed. We've got expert installers and professional service. So call Houdini Plumbing. If you're in Melbourne, like Ahmed and Barry, call 03 9917 5458. Or if you're going to be like Barry in 3 months' time and you have to get on the internet, go to houdiniplumbing.com.au to upgrade today.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
Good. I'm going to give those guys a call. Why not?
Thank you, Tony. We appreciate that. All right. Back to the big stuff. Barry Michael, Australian icon, Australian boxing icon, boxing royalty for sure. Been around for many years, achieved greatness in the sport. Not many know your story, but I don't think enough do, especially from people like a bit younger than me. So Barry, who is Barry Michael? Where did this journey start?
Well, my parents were, I was born in Watford in the UK, and when I was 2, my parents migrated from England to Hamilton. We actually were sponsored by the Apex Club. My dad was a Lancaster bomber. He was in the Lancaster Bombers. He did 29 trips over Germany. He was actually the bombardier, dropped the bombs. His nickname was Butch, short for Butcher, which, pretty grim in those days. But his skipper was a guy called Johnny Reimer, Dr. Johnny Reimer, and the Apex Club sponsored our family out to Hamilton. And my first memories, I have a memory of the ship when I was about 2, the Castle Felice we came out on. And then I have memories of being, Dad, would you believe, became the caretaker of a female Catholic girls' college in Hamilton. And we lived on the grounds in a pretty old house on the grounds. And I remember having ducks and going rabbiting all the time. And we lived there for a few years and, pretty good memories of Hamilton. And then we moved to Glenbervie briefly in Housing Commission houses, where it's probably where I became a Bombers supporter because it's right next to the Essendon, to Windy Hill. And then by the time I was about 8, we moved to the commission houses in Williamstown. And to be honest with you, I'm in Williamstown now. I've been living back here for the last 20 years, but I've lived all over the world as well. But if you're going to live in Melbourne, Williamstown's the best spot.
For sure.
So, yeah, and got into boxing when I was at school growing up. I used to love soccer, but it was everyone bagged you if you like soccer because it was wog ball back then. And I used to get in lots of fights at school, and my first 3 weeks at high school, I had a fight every week, which was organised afterwards, and you'd meet over the road, and they'd form a circle, and you'd punch on. And I never lost any, but I did get the shit beaten out of me by one bloke, Russell Yardley, his name was, and he was a real big native, but he could fight, and in the end he gave up, but he did punch the soul case out of me, to be honest.
So
he gave up.
So boxing was in your destiny.
Hey?
Boxing was in your destiny.
Yeah, I think so. And by the time I was, Dad had 20 fights in the British Air Force and taught us how to hold our hands up, my elder brother and I, and punch straight and stuff like that. And we had boxing gloves in the commission flats, and we used to punch on with our friends and neighbours, and a lot of bad stuff in the commission flats back then. Drugs, heroin. My brother ended up on heroin. I lost probably 5 friends from heroin overdose deaths during the next 10 years. So, yeah, and when I was 15, my elder brother came home. TV ringside was already happening, and it was, watched every week by us. My brother came home when I was 15, so he was 17, said he'd been to a local gym, and they said he was good, and I said, well, I'm coming. So I went the next night with him, and they let me spar a guy called Noel Vidakovic, Nabusha. If you're out there, Nabusha, which he will be somewhere, he could fight, and, went pretty well with him, and the trainer, a bloke called David Reed, I think. I don't know whatever happened to him. Anyway, he said, oh, yeah, you can fight. You're sort of a natural. You want to fight? And I said, yeah. So I trained twice a week for 3 weeks. So 6 times I trained, and I had my first fight. I think I fought a bloke who had 10 fights, and I won. And then I won 5 in a row as an amateur. And then, would you believe, I lost 5 in a row. 4 were bad decisions, though, of course. And then I left my trainer, and I went to Alan Meeker in Oak Park, who said he could show me a lot, which he really did. He was a very good teacher. And I had 7 more amateur fights with Alan Meeker for 6 wins. And then I turned professional as soon as I could, because 3 rounds wasn't my go. I was far suited to a longer journey. And I turned professional 1973, I think, on TV ringside, and had 7 fights in the first year on ringside, won them all, and won the best first year fighter. I'd passed my year 12. I wanted to do economics, would you believe? And I was offered psychology.
Wow.
So I deferred that for 1 year, and after winning all my fights on TV ringside and winning the best first year fighter, I thought, nah, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to, one day, my dream and goal became to one day hear the man say, and 15 3-minute rounds for the championship of the world, win or lose or draw. That was my goal. Not to win, didn't look beyond that, but I was going to fight for a world title.
Well, Baz, I know many do know your story, but just this stuff is all fresh to me, and it's kind of mind-boggling that a boxer of your stature passed up economics and psychology to become a professional boxer.
Yeah, well, it was just in my blood, and once I got the thrill, and to be honest with you, the first year on TV ringside, the thrill of getting up, and I think this is why fighters find it very hard to retire, because nothing in your life gives you as much of a buzz as getting there and competing against someone that can fight, and you come out on top, and you also make money. It's a good part of it as well. And, a lot more money these days than when I was fighting, of course. I mean, back in those days, for an offer of $1,000, I'd accommodation and flights, etc. I'd go to Indonesia, the Philippines, anywhere. And I mean, I fought in Indonesia 5 times, Philippines, South America, Wales, England, all over the joint, just to keep myself active. And my whole dream and goal was that one day getting that opportunity to fight for the world title.
Well, the girls and the beer, free beer helps.
Free beer is always good. I'm more of a wino than a beer drinker, and that came about. I was actually probably not a real wino until I went to train in Italy, and I don't even think I'd won the Australian title at that stage, or maybe I had. Anyway, I went over with Rocky Mattioli after he came out here, and knocked out Alicia Obed, and he was with Umberto Branchini, and we had a meeting, and my friend Brian Schofield and we both paid our own airfares to go to Italy to be looked after by Umberto Branchini, but we didn't sign any contracts. Anyway, cut a long story short, we were looked after well there. We had a beautiful apartment. It was Joe Giubilisco, who I fought here, who ended up winning the European title in Milan. Brian Schofield and myself, and Brian had a fight there, but I had 3 fights lined up, and they all pulled out me because I punched a few of them up in the gym. I used to spar with Rocky Mattioli a lot, and one day I'm sparring with Rocky, and all of a sudden I see blood coming out of his eye, and I'm going, oh, stop. And he was cut, and oh, geez, he wasn't happy. And the next time we sparred, which was about 3 weeks later, he seriously tried to kill me. We're great mates, Rocky and I sparred many rounds with him. And a great fighter, but I couldn't get a fight in Italy. No one would fight me. So in the end, I said, "I stuffed this. I'm going to go to see my cousins in England, which I had a big family in England." So I went and stayed with a cousin of mine, Dennis, and he'd already been in contact with Eddie Thomas down in Wales, and next thing I know, I'm down in South Wales training with the great Eddie Thomas, who was number 1 in the world to Sugar Ray Robinson when he was fighting. He was European and British champion, I think at about welterweight, but he had damaged ligaments in his hands, and he never ever was able to take the shot at the world title. But he looked after me like a cup favourite. He was great, and I came back up to after going down and sparring in Wales. I came back to my cousin's place, and we're having a few drinks, and the phone rings, and it's Eddie Thomas. He said, "I've got a fight for you, Baz." And I said, "Oh, ripper." I said, "When?" He said, 5 days' time.
Oh, wow.
So I had to drive back down to Wales, and, in the middle of having a drink with my cousin, and fought Billy Vivian, I think his name was, yeah. He was the Welsh champion at the time, and got £1,000 for it, a 10-rounder, and yeah, so that started the relationship between Eddie and I. So,
and for those that don't know, for all your family over in the UK and Wales and the surrounding areas, your birth name is Barry Michael Swettenham.
Swettenham, yeah, Swettenham, and if you actually look into the background of it, we actually have got a coat of arms under the Swettenham name, and there was the village of Swettenham, and it was Swettenham. Somewhere along the way, the Swettenham part of my family lost the fortune that they had, because at one stage they were almost not royalty, but in the Doomsday Book, and yeah, so
wow,
yeah.
Well, Baz, I mean, thank you for all that. They're definitely stories that I have not heard before about you. So we learned something new again about the ever-evolving Barry Michael. Barry, let's talk about today and boxing, Australian boxing today. You've been a part of the sport for many years. You've seen many transitions. You've seen many people come in, come out, change the sport, add to the sport, so on and so on. How do you see the state of Australian boxing today? Are we in a good place?
I think, to be honest with you, I haven't promoted for about 8 years, but I'm seriously considering promoting again, because we have more world-rated fighters now than we've ever had. Boxing is in the best position I've seen it for a long time, and now we've got like Lee Haro. I don't know if you saw that victory.
Yeah,
I backed him 3 months ago at $7.50. I just knew he had a real good chance of winning, and he, what a victory to go over there against a guy that had 22 fights, 22 wins, 22 KOs, and beat him in his hometown. So Liam Parra, another superstar. I speak regularly with Sky Nicholson, who's in the UK. She won the WBC world title recently. We've got Shanika Johnson, who's back on top again. And look, there's just so many other names that I could go through. I bumped into Jason Mallia the other night. He's a top Victorian prospect. Watching Mitchell Leake beat Jack Brubaker, who had Gel Ignite Jack on the Team Ellis show, was great the other night, because Jack Brubaker has been a credit to the sport. And he's potentially on the verge of retiring, and he's been a credit as I said, a credit to the sport. But
Wow.
boxing's absolutely booming.
What's your thoughts on the multiple networks being involved? Is that good for the sport, or is that no good for the sport?
Multiple networks being involved. I think it's really good for the sport because, to be honest with you, for the last few years we've had a relative monopoly with No Limit, and they've been fantastic promoters. What they've done for boxing and the pay-per-view shows they put on with Timmy Zoo and
his brother
Paul Gallen. They've been incredible. But it shouldn't. Basically, we shouldn't have a monopoly. And now I see, the other night was 7plus. They're on board, and there's other stations that are looking to get on board. Boxing's booming, so you're going to see more and more on live televised boxing, which is what we want.
How do we keep the talent coming, Barry?
Beg your pardon?
How do we keep the talent coming through? Are our grassroots system in place?
Well, I tell you, when you look at going back probably a decade or so, when Team Alice sort of came to fruition, I said to my partner at the time, Brian Armatruda, I said, these guys are the future. And now, like the other night, if you watched the show, which was live on 7plus, they've got 28 gyms, 20 in the whole Alice clan. I mean, that's a lot of gyms. And back in the old days, I mean, I ran boxing gyms, and you didn't make money out of boxing gyms then. But now it's fashionable for women and men. And, I've trained at North Melbourne Boxing and Fitness for many years. And my mate Steve Stenborg, a really hard worker, he's been there for, 20 odd years in that position in 64 Sutton Street, which is the best gym around. It's now a very viable business for him, even though he works extremely hard. But boxing gyms now make money, and we're producing more and more fighters that want to get in and fight. And the Alice's are leading the charge. There's no doubt about that. They've become the leaders on how to basically bring people in. And what they do is they do this pretend to contender thing. And, that's the start. People start there and wear head guards and big gloves and have a 3 2-minute round fight, and they become hooked, and then they transition further forward. Not all of them, but some of them. And we're going to see more and more top quality fighters come out of Victoria and the whole of Australia.
What are your thoughts on the integration of AFL players into the sport?
Yeah, look, it's really good, I think. It's like some people, used to have bag Paul Gallen to me, and I used to say, listen, Paul Gallen, he's a beast. He trains. He's a rugby player, but he trains hard and he's entitled to, what he's doing, and he beats some quality fighters too. So if they're good enough to have a go, coming from football, coming from basketball, it doesn't matter, but it just brings more publicity to our great sport. And I think now what's coming out about CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy with footballers, concussions, I think it's the people are starting to realise that potentially professional boxers don't take the kind of head knocks that footballers do, because they get hit behind the play. And I mean, I never had a concussion in 14 years professionally in the ring, and I've probably sparred 50,000 plus rounds or more, and I've never been concussed, not to my knowledge anyway. Well, the night I got smashed up in Lazars, I might have been concussed, but that wasn't in the boxing ring.
Yeah, but just to straighten it up a little bit, are you seriously saying, is this an opinion-based suggestion about boxers and CTE versus AFL players?
Yeah, I think if they did some surveys, you'd find that CTE is far more prominent in AFL football than it is in professional boxing, which would probably be a surprise to a lot of people. Because the difference is, when you're standing in front of someone, he's going to throw punches at your head, and so you're aware of it. Whereas in football, these guys who suffer concussions, you see the knockouts, they get knocked out, they don't see it coming, and that's where the real damage is done.
And then the whiplash.
And you see some terrible knocks in football. And I mean, I'm not knocking football. It's, football should never be banned. It's a great sport, AFL footy, but they do take serious head knocks.
Is it getting too soft, do you reckon?
No, I don't think. Rugby league's the next level without head, not like the US guys. But
Yeah.
pretty tough too.
Just to digress, going back to people complaining about Paul Gallen turning to boxing, but did they have that same criticism of Mundine?
Yes, definitely. Early doors, Chock was disliked by a lot of people, and to be honest with you, Chock was outspoken. But I went and watched him train. I think it was after his first professional fight, and I walked out of the Jack Rennie gym, and I said, I don't know what they're talking about. These people, this bloke's going to be a world champion. He just had superb reflexes and timing, and I followed Chock all the way through. And for my money, one of the greatest fighters this country's ever seen.
Hence why you commentated a lot of his fights.
Yeah, I commentated heaps of his fights, and I was accused of being biased towards him a few times. But the bottom line was, when I'd say he's going to win, like when he fought Danny Green, a lot of people were filthy on me. Said he's going to beat Danny Green. Well, he beat Danny. Danny used the weight as an excuse, And anyway, they fought 3 times.
Yeah. You're a good judge, Baz.
Great fighter himself, and I think Danny's going to be inducted in the Boxing Hall of Fame this year, which is August 31st, I think. Let me just check this date.
Well, congratulations to Danny Green if that is the case.
Yeah, it'll be good. Let me just check this date for you, fellas. Yeah, August 31st, Crown Promenade Hall of Fame. Get along if you want tickets.
Well deserved for Danny Green.
Undoubtedly, fought some of the greats.
Absolutely. Barry, who should we look out for coming up in today's boxing world?
Oh, God, I knew you were going to ask me this. There's
Stephen Baker?
No, I don't think Steve's going to, but maybe they'll have a rematch, those two. And I said to Brody, I'll train you properly this time because I only worked with him one day. It wasn't long enough,
Yeah.
Look, there's so many names. If I had a list in front of me, but
give us one. Which one?
Like it could be a heavyweight.
Max Reeves from Gippsland. He's a very exciting prospect. Jason Mallia from Melbourne. He's another undefeated prospect. Oh God, there's interstate. I love watching Nikita Zoo. He does get hit and get hurt occasionally, but he always comes back and wins. Of course, I'm looking forward to seeing Timmy Zoo get back. I've got to ask you, blokes, what did you think of that disaster in the United States when he fought Fundora? I mean, to be honest with you, if I had been in the corner, I would have just said at the end of round 2, the fight's over. Contest.
We had Samson on from the States on our show.
Samson Lekowitz.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of talk around there's a contract for a rematch and so on, and I got a whisper from there that said otherwise. So I said, let's bring him on and let's get the other story.
Yep.
We did. There's no rematch clause.
There's no rematch clause.
No, there's no rematch clause.
That's interesting, Ahmed, because I right at the start they said there was a rematch clause, so there wasn't. That was.
That's why he's not fighting him next. If there was a rematch clause, it could have happened. He's going to fight Errol Spence in Texas in front of probably 50,000 people.
I did see he was going to fight Errol Spence. That'll be an interesting fight.
Yeah.
Timmy Zoo was going to fight Virgil Ortiz, which
I think that was premature, Barry, because that cut was a big cut. I think that cut was very understated.
It was an artery. It cut an artery, and you could see. I mean, the amount of blood. I've never seen so much blood in a fight in my life. And what Glenn Jennings said to me, he said their doctor wanted to stop the fight, but he was overruled by the 2 American doctors who said no. Tim Zoo's vision isn't obscured. And that's a lot of bullshit.
Tim's gone on record since saying that he wouldn't have stopped the fight anyway because he said it's just against everything that he has believed and been taught as a fighter. So he said no matter, he knew there was something wrong with the amount of blood pissing out of his forehead, but he just, for whatever reason, he just said, no, I'm not going to go out like this.
I do believe that because he is a warrior, and you know what? To be honest with you, on the world stage, I think it's probably going to make Tim Tszyu a far more popular international fighter, you know, for the world to watch, considering what he went through, literally hell, and probably nearly needed a blood transfusion after 12 rounds of the amount of blood he lost, and to, you know, to lose a very close decision against a quality fighter in Fundura. How does a man that's 6'5.5" makes 69.5 kilos?
Mm. And Baz, by extension of what you're saying, Tim Tszyu, just I said to Ahmed straight after that fight took place after Fundura, I said Tim Tszyu will go down in history because everybody will use that vision to promote boxing for the next 20 years.
Yeah, maybe for good or bad. I mean, I've got a picture on my phone of Timmy and the amount of blood that was coming out. His whole face is just covered. It was an amazing effort for him to go 12 close rounds with Fundura. And as I said, Fundura can fight and, you know, just lose on a split decision. So I think it's going to make him incredibly more popular. It's a pity they haven't got a rematch clause, but you'd think it'll be something that's got to happen going forward. And I tell you, you know, with Timmy, there's absolutely no dodging opponents because Virgil Ortiz
is a killer.
He's knocked out everyone he's fought.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Barry, wouldn't it have made him look a lot better if he finished the fight with his hands raised and holding the WBO title and the world recognizing him as a world champion? I think that would put him in a lot better position.
Undoubtedly, for sure, Ahmed. But the fact that he fought under such adversity and still, you know, lost on a split decision after. I mean, not many fighters would go through what Tim went through. I've never seen so much blood in a fight in my life, and he did. At no stage did he think of stopping, you know, it went right down the wire. And in a rematch, I think he'd probably stop Fundura.
I liked him a lot, and I like what he stands for. But
Yep.
I think the corner is employed and paid to protect the fighter from himself. And I don't think that happened on that night, personally. That's my personal opinion. But anyway, we'll keep going on that. We'll definitely keep pressing forward. Barry, okay, you hinted before you might get back into the game of promoting, doing things in boxing. Can you tell us a bit more, or is that all still very undercover?
Well, it's still undercover, but it'll be Bruce Eva, you know, Bruce the Beaver Eva, who's, you know, a great. I love working with Bruce, the commentator, and he's just, you know, he's got a incredible memory of all sports. You know, big lover of boxing. Bruce and I did the 2010 Commonwealth Games together. We've done many commentaries together, and we're going to, you know, promote together as a team. And yeah, you know, like at the moment, it's just all in the negotiation stage, and it's not 110% locked in that we're going to do it. It's just we just need to put the right things in place, and I think there's room for more promoters still, and yeah, you know, not sure where we'll be promoting out of at the moment. We're looking at venues. We've got a few good ones in mind. I really can't say too much at the moment, but yeah, hopefully within a month we might be able to.
Wow, there you go.
We wish you all the best with you and Beaver with that, Baz.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, look, you know, I couldn't be doing it with a better bloke than Beaver. And there's a mate of mine, Glenn Carter, who owns Game Face. He's going to be involved in whatever we do. He's going to be a great asset as well.
What is Game Face? Just maybe a quick shout out for him. Yeah.
Beg your pardon, sorry.
What is Game Face? Maybe give him a quick shout out.
A streaming platform, which is he streams all the football clubs around the Melbourne Peninsula. So he's got a big following, and when the Ellises do a show, we usually stream their show because it gets a few thousand extra buyers. So I think, look, streaming is becoming more and more popular and can create good income, you know, if it's promoted properly. So, you know, Glenn Carter with Game Face is going to be on board as well.
Wow. I have one last one from me, Barry.
I think it is. What am I talking about? Game Face. I think it's Stream Zone, his company. Yeah.
That's all right. That's all right. Barry, one last one from me. Who would you say has been your greatest commentary partner? Because there came a stage where I turn on Fox, you are commentating. I turn on main event, you're commentating. Everywhere you're commentating, mate. International, local. You've done a fair few.
To be honest with you, I've never worked with a man who does his homework more than Brucey either, and who has a memory like Bruce. You know, when it comes to football, Bruce is a football tragic as well, and he's a St Kilda tragic. And like a friend of mine, Simon Meehan, who I work with in real estate, and been mates for 30 to 35 odd years, he said to me, "Oh, Bruce will say to me, remember, back in 1980 something when you played Essendon, and the third quarter you did this and you did that." And he goes, "I can't even remember myself, and Bruce remembers everything." He's amazing. He's incredible.
Wow. There you go. Tony, any last questions for Barry?
Baz, I've got one last one from me. Now, 3 weeks ago, you turned 69. How did you celebrate?
Oh, went down to Pelican's Landing, which a friend of mine owns, John, and had a few friends down there. Didn't make a really big deal of it, just close friends, and had a fair bit to drink and had a good feed down. The food's always excellent, but Pelican's Landing, it's right on, just off Gem Pier, right on the water, great spot, and he has happy hour all day, which is also helpful.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
And then you looked up at the sky and said, "I'm not waking up to this shit anymore. I'm moving to Queensland."
Oh no, I've had that, to be honest with you, since my beautiful wife Sue passed away May 7th last year. I've had it in my mind that I've got to move on. I'm in a house, big 2-story, 4-bedroom house by myself. It's pretty lonely at times, and I think I've got a couple of good opportunities in Queensland. So I think that's where I'll end up. It's it's not 110% locked in, but that's the plan.
Well, rest in peace, Sue and Baz. Whatever makes you happy, you've got to do it.
Thanks, Tone.
Absolutely. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. The man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Barry Michael. Thank you very much for joining us on Raw Sport. We wish you all the best. Any parting words from you, Barry?
Just like to say, thanks, Tony. Thanks, Owen. Thanks so much for having me on. And I'm doing a few podcasts of my own as well, and got a couple of big names coming up. I won't mention that either, but Bruce.
What's it called? What's your podcast called?
Yeah, I don't think we've got a name for it. It's just Bruce and I. We did one on before the Alexander Usyk fight and Fury, and Bruce asked me what I thought would happen. I said, well, look, I'll be honest with you. I met Fury when he was out here, and we hit it off real well. And I said, I'd like to see Fury win, but I don't think he will. And I actually backed Usyk, and I said he'll find a way to win. I said he's shown that he can beat bigger men, like he beat Joshua twice, and I got it right. I got it spot on. So a rematch, I don't think it's going to be any different, to be honest. And there's going to be a rematch, and it'll be massive. I think Usyk will win again.
Jeez.
Wow.
Good words from a boxing aficionado and pugilist of your caliber, mate. You're always spot on.
Barry,
not always, but
Barry, we have one question from the fans actually. Boxing royalty, Barry Michael. Real question. We've all been watching boxing for many years. Costa was legitimately one of the best, but can we agree Tim is definitely not at the standard of his father, and will he ever get there?
That's a really good question. Who, to be honest, can achieve what his father achieved? I mean, he was undefeated light welterweight #1 in the world for a decade. 275 amateur fights he had before he turned professional, with 5 losses. Now, Kostya, one of the all-time greats, and look, a big ask to put Timmy on the same pedestal, but he's young enough, and he's improving continually. I've seen Timmy right from the start. I've commentated nearly all of his fights, and I've seen this improvement continually, and I think he's still getting better and better. And there's some big fights in front of Tim. I mean, the likes of Terence Crawford, man, they're talking about that fight. I don't see one beating Crawford. I don't see Canelo Alvarez beating Crawford. Canelo, he was offered $75 million, I believe. Fight him.
Saudi money, yeah.
Big money. But now look, Timmy Zoo's still got a long way to go in his career, and he's young and he's hungry. and I think he'll make a big statement. But you know, saying that is he going to be better than his father? It's a question we probably shouldn't ask, because Kosciuszko is certainly one of the greatest the world's ever seen.
They both forged their own paths, and it's Timmy's time, so we'll just watch Timmy forge his. And that pretty much brings us to the end of the show. Mr. Barry Michael, thank you very much for joining us on Raw Sport. Thank you, Tony. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in. Take care, everyone. We'll catch you all on the next episode of Raw Sport. Thank you.
Thanks, Baz.
Thank you.